So my father-in-law, your dad,
Yes.
he's a Staten Island Italian American,
Oh, yeah.
and he talks like he's a Staten Island Italian American.
All my Staten Island Italian Americans out there listening, including possibly my dad. He hasn't seen this movie yet.
He has been a Scorsese fan for many decades now. And you talked to him today asking for his favorite Scorsese movies and his favorite De Niro movies.
Yes.
And so he said Meet the Parents, I'm assuming.
Well, he didn't start with De Niro. He started with Scorsese, and then he realized like halfway through that
Had De Niro.
every one of his top 5, or at least the 5 that he told me, had De Niro in them.
Not a Hugo fan?
So then he went. Hugo was good.
I loved Hugo.
We didn't talk about Kundun either.
Oh, I liked it.
He liked it maybe, but you want me to go into them?
Yeah, talk about
You want me to go into the dad canon of
the
Martin
your
Scorsese?
dad canon, yeah.
The Italian New York dad canon of Martin Scorsese.
Let me hear it.
All right. He started, of course, with Goodfellas and Casino. He lumped them into one.
They are one.
Because they're the same type of genre. They got basically the same cast.
Right.
With Sharon Stone in Casino as opposed to, what's her name? Lorraine Bracco in Goodfellas. I mean, he didn't even need to go into them because I know he's seen them 150 times a piece.
Yeah.
They're just, they are dad canon.
Yes.
In terms of dads in general.
Yes.
Number 2, which I was a little surprised at, was Taxi Driver.
Yeah, but it's a classic.
It is a classic, but I thought it might have been a little bit too gritty for him.
He's just excited that Jodie Foster got nominated again.
Well, for Naiad.
Yeah.
No, he likes Jodie Foster.
Who doesn't?
But he went through the whole plot with me. I was like, I know, I've seen it, but
we got to see True Detective.
For Jodie.
Yeah, my co-teacher said it was really good.
Yeah, I've heard good things.
Yeah.
But yeah, he likes Taxi Driver. Number 3, which I was also a little surprised at, King of Comedy.
Ah.
Did
he see Joker?
No, he said he knows that King of Comedy was a flop when it came out, and it was. It was. Big flop.
Yeah, but Scorsese's mad it was a flop.
My dad liked how De Niro played the role. He's like a stalker, like basically like the end of like the third act of Joker.
Right.
He liked how he played it as both scary and darkly funny. And I told him about after Joker came out how King of Comedy's kind of had a little bit of a renaissance and how people have like gone back to it and liked it, and he was happy to hear that.
Joker is very much influenced by King of Comedy from what I understand.
Todd Phillips said King of Comedy and I forget the other movie, but it was another Scorsese. I forget, maybe Cape Fear, I don't know. But number 4, I don't think these are in any order, but Raging Bull.
A classic.
Which is definitely a dad. It's got boxing.
I watched that with my dad.
It's got boxing. It's got Joe Pesci, who was really before he was big.
Great movie. Black and white.
Yeah. In black and white 1980, which was a throwback at the time. Even.
Yeah, good times.
And number 5, as I mentioned, Cape Fear, which I think is maybe a little backdoor one for some people.
Yeah.
I don't think it got very good reviews.
I think Cape Fear and Shutter Island are like of the same vein when it comes to Scorsese.
Well, he liked Shutter Island also.
Who doesn't?
Well, I think it's more surprising that he's seen Shutter Island.
Yeah.
Shutter Island,
I saw that in theaters.
Yeah.
That might have been the first Scorsese movie I've ever seen.
I got some other opinions on some of the other movies.
All right, let's hear it.
Gangs of New York, great movie.
No, it's not. It's fine.
Last Temptation of Christ, which was Willem Dafoe.
I did not see that.
As Jesus Christ. Didn't go over too well, he said.
With who?
I think with the general public.
Yeah.
Because it was pretty controversial. Scorsese considers himself a lapsed Catholic, so he has a lot of Catholic guilt.
Yeah, sure.
And I think Paul Schrader wrote it, and he's another one of those.
I believe that.
Yeah, from First Reformed, like those types of movies. So.
Did he do Taxi Driver too?
Schrader, yeah, he did.
Yeah.
And not crazy about The Irishman, he said.
Nobody is.
He watched The Irishman probably 10, 12 times as far as I know.
That's how he is. He like even if he hates it, if it's like a thing for him, he'll watch it like a dozen times.
He said that I remember when he first watched The Irishman and he was like, "Oh, it was pretty good. Like Pacino was good, Pesci was good, De Niro, like all the main people."
Yeah, but like the more he watches it, the more he hates it.
He said like by the 5th time he was like, "I hate this movie." And then he continued to watch it. And probably continues to watch it, as far as I know.
It's a very particular character trait of his.
Yeah, well, he read the book.
Right.
And he's read a lot about...
I hear you paint houses.
Yeah, I heard you paint houses. He's also read a lot about the mob because he's a New York dad.
Right.
So he had very particular opinions on certain things and the way they were depicted in that movie.
Sure.
So he then went into De Niro. He said all the above, obviously, because they're all his favorite Scorsese's. Midnight Run, of course, he said.
Oh, of course.
I didn't like it when I watched it with him when I was younger, but
I've never.
I would have to give it a rewatch. It's a comedy.
Right.
The Deer Hunter.
Oh, I need to see that.
Yeah, with directed by Michael Cimino.
Streep is in it.
Streep and John Cazale.
Yeah, R.I.P.
There's a fourth person too. Duvall, maybe.
Maybe.
Analyze This.
Oh, and Analyze That.
Analyze This came out like right before The Sopranos did.
Is that him and Jack Nicholson? Who
Analyze
else is
This?
it? Yeah.
Billy Crystal.
Oh, Billy Crystal.
And Billy Crystal plays a psychiatrist, and he's a mob guy.
I bet it's cute.
It's a comedy, and
Yeah.
it came out like shortly before The Sopranos. So it was compared to Analyze This when the show came out.
Which is funny because I'm sure it's very different.
I'm sure. He also mentioned, of course, Meet the Parents.
Right.
Which is just, it's great. Meet the Parents is great.
It's a great movie.
I watch it when it's on TV all the time.
Me too. We watched it the other day.
It's so good.
It's great.
And Godfather 2, of course, which is my dad's favorite Godfather in the series.
There you go.
It might have changed. I think I remember hearing him say that his favorite's the first one now.
I feel like it can go back and forth.
But over the years when I was growing up, I was told that
Second one's better
Godfather
than the
2
first
is the best one.
Yeah.
I don't agree, personally.
You like the first one?
I like the first one better. I think it's a more complete story.
I like the third one. No, I'm just kidding.
But 2 has a great little, I don't want to say gimmick, but like I like the flashbacks and all that. It's a cool addition when you don't have, Brando in the second one.
Yeah, it's like season 2 of White Lotus.
Exactly. It's like the season 2 of White Lotus, as we've all said about The Godfather Part 2. And he said he does some dumb stuff now, like Dirty Grandpa, but he's still great in those roles.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he, like you said, he's still great in like what he does. So that's cool.
Yeah. So that is the dad canon of
new dad, Robert De Niro.
Yes. Ew. Exactly. Both Robert De Niro and Martin Scorsese. Those are my dad's faves.
There you go. I love it. Okay, we have the flu now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right.
And the only prescription is our first Scorsese movie on Baby's First Watch List.
Oh, yeah. Marty.
So yeah, I'm Aaron.
I'm Tom.
And this is Baby's First Watch List, the podcast whose hosts really actually we do have the flu.
Yeah, I'm going to do my best again, as I've been the past few weeks, to edit out all the coughing.
We've influenza A.
Yep.
And we're influencing everyone
Okay.
during our Oscars watch season. I feel okay. I probably don't sound very good, but I feel fine.
You sound fine to me.
Yeah.
But then again, my ears are all plugged up, so.
Here's like a tip, you guys. I went to the doctor our son had it. So like we did know, we had a heads up about it. And then I'm like, I'm probably going to get this thing. And then I didn't have it for like a week. And then I was at work, and then at lunchtime, bam, symptoms. And I was like, uh-oh. So when I got home that day, I immediately called the doctor. They brought me in. I tested, and they put me on Tamiflu immediately. And I think that is what's been saving me.
And the flu shot.
And my flu shot, of course, I got my flu shot too. But getting that Tamiflu right in, which is approved for pregnant ladies, so if you are worried, it's okay. I think that really helps. So if you are someone who's getting all of a sudden flu-like symptoms really quickly, where it's like you think you're fine and then go to the doctor and then get on Tamiflu, because you can only take it up to 72 hours after symptoms start.
It's very hard to tell though. Like am I going to go to the doctor every single time I have
you have a cold?
Right.
This is the difference for me.
When you have a child who already had the flu, and
that's an easy take. But I'm just saying, like, if you went from like, I'm feeling good, and then lunchtime hits and you're like, I don't feel so good. With like all of a sudden you have a congestion.
Are we really referencing a Marvel movie inside a Scorsese podcast?
Yeah, I don't feel so good, Mr. Stark. Like all of a sudden you're like, you can't breathe out of your nose and your throat hurts and whatever. Then maybe that's a sign.
Yeah.
Yeah. So little hint there, little tip and trick
Anyway.
from someone who had pneumonia 3 weeks ago and now has the flu.
Yeah, from somebody who's very good at keeping their immune system going.
It's a pregnancy problem.
No, I know.
Today we are knee deep in our Oscars watching. In fact, this week it took 5 attempts to watch these 2 movies, but we watched 2 more Oscar nominees. And today's episode is on Killers of the Flower Moon. Woo!
And we also watched Past Lives.
We did. This 2023 drama, which only took us 3 sittings to watch.
Which is not bad, to be honest.
Not bad, especially with all the conditions we currently have.
Yeah.
Was directed by Martin Scorsese, who co-wrote the script with Eric Roth. So Roth has been nominated 6 times for Best Screenplay. Probably, I don't know if it's, so far all the ones that I know of are adapted. Maybe a couple are original there. Forrest Gump, The Insider, Munich, Benjamin Button, A Star is Born, and Dune.
That's a lot of different directors.
It is.
That he works with.
He won one of them. You want to guess which one he won?
Say them again.
Forrest Gump, The Insider, Munich, Benjamin Button, A Star is Born, and Dune.
I think he won for The Insider.
No, he won for Forrest Gump.
Okay, thought that was going to be too obvious.
The ones that I've seen that he's done, I don't love the screenplay for, which is interesting. He also, coincidentally, movies I don't like that he was involved in, was also worked on the screenplay for Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, which is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the worst Best Picture nominees I've ever seen.
Easily one of the worst Best Picture.
Probably the worst.
I can't think of a worse one that I've seen.
Right. I agree.
It would be like if Epic Movie was nominated for Best Picture.
Right, exactly. Oh, shoot. I forgot to get a New Jersey connection, but I'll do that while you're doing your thing. But I have a really far out New Jersey connection for you. Eric Roth's wife won an Oscar for Best Short Documentary in 2008 for Freeheld. Have you heard of that?
No.
It's actually really interesting. It was before Obergefell.
Obergefell?
Yep.
Oh my.
It was passed and gay marriage was legalized.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a life partnership couple who one of them, she was like terminally ill, and the other partner she lived in Freehold, I think, New Jersey, and petitioned to get the rights and stuff that would be given to a spouse. So it was turned into a movie a few years ago with Julianne Moore and Elliot Page.
Okay.
And so that's my kind of semi New Jersey connection there. Sneak peek. So Killers of the Flower Moon was adapted from the 2017 book of the same name, written by David Gran. And we have a few people who have recommended it to us.
Yes.
That enjoy it. Cinematographer Rodrigo Prieto has been nominated for Brokeback Mountain, Silence, The Irishman.
He's a big one.
Now Killers of the Flower Moon. He also shot Babel, Argo, many, many other movies. And this year he did Barbie as well.
Oh, really?
So there was a chance he would be nominated twice. But Barbie did not get Best Cinematography.
No, it didn't.
Which is kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, Barbie didn't get a lot of things.
That's true. That is true. Editor Thelma Schoonmaker, which, okay, talk about like a niche inside joke thing. Tom referenced that yesterday.
I did.
So I try and do this sometimes where I try to guess what the next line's going to be in a movie. And a lot of times I'm pretty good at it. And this time I got it right. We were watching the end of Killers of the Flower Moon, and I said a line right before Jesse Plemons said it, and then Tom said, "I'm the Thelma Schoonmaker to your Scorsese."
I said, "I'll gladly be Thelma."
And so she has edited all of Scorsese's films since Raging Bull.
Yes.
So
long time partnership.
She edited his debut film, and then she didn't do, I think, 2 or 3 of them, including Mean Streets and Taxi Driver. And then since 1980 she has edited every single one of his movies, which is amazing. She has won 3 Oscars so far. You want to guess what movies? You wouldn't.
I wouldn't.
I mean, you would, but
they're all his, right?
What? Yes, she was nominated for movie Woodstock, but besides that, all the rest were his that were nominated, and then 3 that won. 1 is old, 2 are 21st century.
The Departed.
The
Aviator.
Yes.
And
then what's the old one?
Oh, did you say Raging Bull?
And it's Raging Bull. Oh my gosh! Wow, that's impressive. And she is nominated for Killers of the Flower Moon this year.
I think deservedly so.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Editing was good.
The music is by Robbie Robertson. He was a member of the band.
The band, yeah. Scorsese did a documentary on the band.
Yep.
Back in the day.
He also was Bob Dylan's guitarist back in like the 70s.
Scorsese also did a documentary on Dylan.
There you go. And Rolling Stone listed him as the 59th greatest guitarist of all time. He's worked a lot with Scorsese, doing a lot of the music for his movies. He actually passed away in August, and the film is dedicated to him.
They worked together a lot, Scorsese and Robertson.
And he has a posthumous nomination for original score.
Yeah.
Here. And I think it's kind of it adds even more significance to the end of the movie where it ends with music.
Yeah.
He was also part indigenous as well.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Robert De Niro, and Lily Gladstone. Killers of the Flower Moon is the 6th collab between Scorsese and DiCaprio.
Crazy.
You want to guess what number between Scorsese and De Niro?
I think I saw, is it like 9 or something?
It's 10. Yep. And they did do one together, all three of them. It was The Audition, which is like a short film like 2015 or something.
Well, it's crazy how many he's done with De Niro and how many he's done with DiCaprio, and this is their first feature.
And then they've never done it, together. That's interesting. Development for the film began in 2016. It was paused for The Irishman and then paused again because of COVID. And principal photography took place in 2021 in Oklahoma. In fact, this is the highest budgeted movie to be filmed in the state. Before that, in about 2019-ish, Scorsese had met with Principal Chief Jeffrey Standing Bear to see how the Osage Nation could be involved. And it seems that they were involved throughout the process.
I think I read that it was kind of a condition of filming that they were heavily involved. And they had, I don't want to say like veto power over the script, but Scorsese really tried to make sure he took their like opinions and their basically what they wanted into consideration.
Well, and last year, Lily Gladstone later, she said that the input from the Osage made the movie better.
Yeah, and she's Blackfeet tribe, I think. She's not Osage, but she, worked with them as well in the same type of way to learn their traditions that are different from hers and all that.
Well, and they had a consultant for the Osage language, which was used very often in the 1920s, to make sure that the cast was using it properly. And although there is some criticism of the movie from indigenous critics and voices, it seems that Scorsese really, really put his money where his mouth was when it came to the production.
Most of the stuff, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. Most of the stuff that I read from people in the indigenous communities, especially those who worked on or like around the movie, basically had nothing bad to say about Scorsese, and that he tried, he did his best. And even the critics are kind of like, it's not that he did something wrong, it's that they want this story told from a different perspective. Like it was basically like, so Devery Jacobs from Reservation Dogs, the lead actress, said basically that we're sick of seeing Native American women hurt and murder. Like, we don't want to see that anymore on screen. We want some other representation that should have been done from from Molly's perspective or whatever. And Lily Gladstone, it wasn't in direct response to that, but Lily Gladstone basically said that, yes, but who's giving Osage directors that type of money right now?
Well, right. Which
is a problem in and of itself. But she also said, like, this is a huge thing because basically we meaning, the cast and crew of and team behind Killers of the Flower Moon is hopefully creating more opportunities for indigenous actors and indigenous filmmakers to create those types of stories.
Well, and it's interesting that she said that because we at Sundance last year we watched a movie, Fancy Dance,
yes,
which was an indigenous director and writer, and she was the star of that movie.
She meaning
Lily Gladstone.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful. I loved it.
It was great.
And I haven't seen it anywhere.
I don't think it got bought.
Yeah. So she's not wrong.
Right.
There about the fact that these movies are not going to be given not just $200 million budgets, but also wonderful movies like the one that we saw at Sundance are not even getting distribution.
Yeah.
And
part of it too, I mean, how great Reservation Dogs was and how well it did and how many people liked it. It got no Emmy nominations whatsoever.
Right.
It's like these works still aren't getting recognized. And it's not that necessarily that indigenous creators need a white savior like Martin Scorsese to come in and blow this whole thing open for them.
Right.
But I'm not going to say that it's not going to help, because we wouldn't be talking about, like, I read some like I've read some Native American history books and stuff like that, so I am particularly interested in these types of topics.
And we do seek out that movies and TV
like
shows.
Fancy Dance and stuff.
Right. And Reservation Dogs.
Right. But like what I'm trying to say is like it's not in the general consciousness. So I'm thinking hopefully that this movie does help some of these issues get put into the forefront and allow for the better Native representation in film.
Yeah, for sure. And
in mainstream film.
Right.
And I think it helped with Lily Gladstone. Like, she's a name now.
Oh, yeah. Everybody knows who she is now if you're paying attention.
Yeah.
So Killers of the Flower Moon premiered at Cannes, whatever. However,
Roger Ebert called it Cannes.
I used to say Cannes, and now I lean more towards Cannes.
Yeah.
But whatever.
We'll go with Ebert.
I said Cannes first, so who am I? So it premiered there in May 2023. It was released in theaters in October. There was some controversy surrounding the film. I'm going to have us talk about it in my questions. A few theaters added an intermission to the middle of the film, just of their own volition. And this was considered a contract violation between studios and the theaters. So that ended.
Yeah.
And Thelma Schumacher was particularly upset about it and defended the film's length, as well as Scorsese did as well. So we can talk about that in my questions later. The movie made $156.4 million on a $200 million budget, but it actually made a lot of money for a Scorsese film, apparently.
His movies don't make that much money.
No. And it was a critical success. Like I had mentioned before, movie critics and voices in the indigenous community have mixed to positive reviews to the film. And it seems that it's all based on what you have said previously about it, where they think the movie's well done. They really like Scorsese, and they appreciate the movie itself, but they do wish for more indigenous-led productions.
Yeah.
And voices. It has been nominated for 10 Academy Awards: Best Picture, Director, Actress for Lily Gladstone, Supporting Actor for De Niro, Best Costume Design, Original Song, Original Score, Production Design, Editing, and Cinematography. Notably absent is Leonardo DiCaprio, who is, I didn't put him on my list.
I don't think I did either. No, I didn't, but I missed one regardless.
Yeah. And so he was kind of on the edge
bubble
there. Yeah. And again, we will talk about whether we think he was a deserved like if he should have gotten it or not.
Well, I just want to say real quick, I think in our Oscars episode, I presumed that his role and De Niro's role were sort of like extensions of roles that they had played prior.
Yeah.
And I want to retract that, because especially DiCaprio's was not.
He was, very different than I'd ever seen him.
I thought he was really good.
Yeah, I agree. Gladstone became the first Indigenous actress of American descent to be nominated for an Oscar. And these, I'm getting this stuff directly from Wikipedia here. At 81, Scorsese earned, guess how many nominations for Best Director? Which nomination is this?
9.
It's 10. Yep.
Wow, close.
And so he has more Oscar nominations for that category than anyone alive. He also became the oldest Best Director nominee. Who did he beat?
John Huston. I read
Yes.
it.
Who was 79.
And the one with the most ever living or dead Best Director nominations is William Wyler with 12.
There you go. Scorsese could beat that.
He could.
Yeah.
He's got another movie. He's got a Jesus movie coming.
Look, who says
I
that?
saw it described as a Jesus movie.
Who says that 80's too old to, be at the top of your game? Nobody's saying that nowadays, right?
I've seen some things with him where he's like, I am scared of how old I am. Like,
he's not into the age. He's not into being 81.
He's like, I have so much more left to say and left to do, and I am in my 80s. Like,
I've been in my thinking about Pop George era, and that is something that he totally thought before he had. For many years, he was very scared of getting older and death and not being able to see things as he, whatever. And I think that Scorsese is very similar in that way. Besides, Scorsese's talking about creating art. Pop would be more hanging out and vibing.
Yeah, going to the Amish.
Yeah, exactly. So Schoonmaker, she earned her 9th nomination for Best Editing. And so she now has the most nominations in that category, which is really cool because we are always talking about women kind of just starting to kind of make headway in these this industry with nominations and awards, and it's neat to see that like
she's a titan.
She's that girl.
Yeah.
So that's what I've got here for my intro stuff. Not bad for a couple minutes before, right?
Yeah. As you can tell, we've been very very prepared for our episodes as of late.
We have listen.
Well, we get it done. It just has to get done.
It
gets done in the windows of time where we can get it done.
Exactly. It's been extra hard the past few weeks with the sickness and all the stuff going on.
All right, so I'm doing my plot synopsis thing, but because this movie was 3.5 hours, it's like kind of like a half summary. So just bear with me here. So we start with a scene setting showing a brief history of how the Osage Nation were forcefully relocated from Kansas to what was believed to be useless land in Oklahoma until they discovered oil. The tribe became extremely wealthy, which of course led to the Americans regretting their placement and instituting through law that the natives were deemed incompetent to manage their money and required white court-appointed legal guardians to do so. So let me get into our film. Ernest Burkhart, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, returns from World War I to live with his uncle William King Hale, played by Robert De Niro, a man posing as a friendly benefactor of the Osage. Ernest ends up meeting and marrying Molly Kyle, played by Lily Gladstone, who is an Osage whose family owns oil head rights. They end up with 3 children. Hale secretly plans the death of several wealthy Osage and continues his plan by having several of Molly's family members murdered with Ernest's knowledge. So basically his whole plan is to have the oil head rights flow to him or to his people in order to make sure that he becomes wealthy off of the backs of the birthright of Native Americans. And of course, at this time, there is nobody is enforcing anything.
Right. No, not at all.
So he assumed that he was just going to get away with it. Nobody would ever even know about it. Of course, because of his influence in the town, nothing's happening. So Molly heads to Washington to ask for the help of President Calvin Coolidge. In response, Hale persuades Ernest to poison Molly's insulin to slow her down, he says. Eventually, the newly formed Bureau of Investigation, which would become the FBI, sends down Agent Thomas White, played by Jesse Plemons, and each pawn in Hale's scheme flips on him. Ernest, Byron, who is Ernest's brother, and Hale are all arrested, and the agents find Molly severely ill and get her proper medical care. White convinces Ernest to testify against Hale, and after one of his and Molly's daughter dies of whooping cough, Ernest testifies, and Hale unsuccessfully tries to have him murdered. He has one final meeting with Molly, where she leaves him when he will not admit that he had poisoned her. A radio show reveals the aftermath. Ernest and Hale were convicted and got life sentences. Both were eventually paroled and lived out their lives. After the trial, Molly divorced Ernest, remarried, and died at the age of 50 from diabetes, and her obituary did not mention the Osage murders. And then finally we end with a 21st century Osage powwow scene.
There you go.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Great. That was perfect timing.
Yeah, you got it.
I got a really good NJ connection. One of the cameos in this movie, I don't know if you'd call it a cameo or a supporting small part, is from John Lithgow.
Supporting part.
Yeah. And Lithgow is a prosecutor for the FBI. Nope.
For the federal government.
Federal government. Close enough. And he, although being born in Rochester, New York, his dad was the kind of head of McCarter Theater in Princeton, New Jersey, and Lithgow himself graduated from Princeton High School.
Wow.
A public high school in the great state of New Jersey, very close to us.
Yeah, so if it were not for New Jersey, then DiCaprio and I guess Robert De Niro, Hale would not have been convicted of his crimes because he needed a prosecutor like John Lithgow. What
else do you need, people? There you go.
The evidence continues to pile up that New Jersey is the #1 state.
And Dexter would have gone downhill way sooner.
Absolutely. It made it to season 4, the Lithgow season. So
there you go. So because this is our first Scorsese movie, I wanted to go over like how you like this compared to other Scorsese movies. So I went through. I've only seen 9 of his films, and I think he's like 26 features. Most of the ones that I've seen are his more recent ones. Honestly, that makes sense to me because like now I'll see most of his. I didn't see Silence, but I'll see most of his movies when they come out. So I wrote down the ones that I have seen: Raging Bull, Goodfellas, Gangs of New York, Departed, Shutter Island, Hugo, Wolf of Wall Street, The Irishman, and Killers of the Flower Moon.
Okay.
So I was just wondering, I could go first as you kind of calculate maybe which ones you've seen or whatever.
Did.
Oh, okay. I want to tell you like what I think.
Yeah, go for it.
So to me, I think that this film felt like a very kind of classic Scorsese movie to me.
100%.
It is the main character is a guy who is unlikable and bad, but still likable.
Likeable in that he's charismatic.
Yes.
The actor is charismatic.
But still, like, he's bad.
Yeah, I think this movie did a really good job of explicitly showing him when like bad things are happening.
Yeah.
And that he's involved in those things.
Yeah.
Continues to remind you over and over again that he is not to be pitied. He is not to be trusted. And the book is laid out as a whodunit because it's from the point of view of Jesse Plemons' character, who's like barely in the movie,
right?
And the FBI trying to solve these murders,
right?
Scorsese described the book as a whodunit, and he described his movie as he said like who didn't do it, who didn't done it, or something like that. Because the whole time you know who's behind everything.
Yes,
and it's less about the effect, it's not less about the effect on the Native Americans, which is kind of the issue,
right?
But the movie at its heart is, like many other Scorsese movies, about the destructive power of greed and of avarice and disloyalty, and
right,
like these are bad guys and you know it, and he's going to tell you over and over again.
Stylistically too, it just feels very him.
Yeah, there's
the cuts that are very famous,
Thelma.
that Thelma's known for. Music is used very purposefully and strong in a strong manner, I think, in his movies. And a lot of the shots just feel very, very Marty to me. It's got a big cast, a lot of characters. Sometimes I find that I get a little confused with his movies.
I was going to ask you, one of my questions is about whether you got confused with all the characters.
Yes, and there are some things that I think that Martin Scorsese really respects his audience, because there's some things that like are like you have to make not leaps to understand, but like you would have to have some background knowledge that they're not going to explain to you.
And you also have to remember people from 2 hours ago.
Right. Well,
like
that too.
When like Kelsey, whatever that guy's name was, comes back at the end.
Exactly. Which I'm struggling. with that sometimes.
I'll be honest with you. I actually did okay with this one.
There's a couple things where I'm just like, okay, like I guess we just have to kind of, you either just kind of glaze over it, or you know, or you don't know, and you're just like, okay. Like her saying, like, she says, you know, Molly Kyle or Molly Burkhart, depending on the time in the movie, incompetent, blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't explain what that is.
Yeah, he does. He said in the beginning.
No, he doesn't.
In the opening.
Oh, so clearly I just don't pay attention.
In the opening sequence, he said incompetent. That's what they had to say because they were Native Americans and they couldn't access their money. Because
he said that?
It said it in like the opening reels.
Oh, see, I don't pay attention.
It's because that was the law that they put in so that the Osage couldn't access their money.
Right. I know that now because I looked it up.
They called them incompetent because they needed their guardian. So unless they were with their guardian, they were incompetent. All
right. Well, I still am like, okay.
There was stuff like that in the movie though.
Bad example. And so when it comes to those types of movies, if I put it in like it's kind of like Goodfellas or Gangs of New York, The Departed, Wolf of Wall Street, The Irishman, like I think it's up there. I think it's up there with it.
I agree. I think it's a strong movie.
I happen to like a lot of Scorsese's movies that deviate from that a little bit.
You should watch some of the ones that you haven't seen.
I definitely want to see King of Comedy. I definitely want to see Mean Streets. I definitely want to see Taxi Driver. Like I for sure want to see those. Heck, I'll even see Kundun. I'll even see that. But like I love the simplicity of Raging Bull. I think that Shutter Island is just a really cool, twisty movie.
Well, when you think Scorsese, I feel like the average person thinks Goodfellas and Casino.
Right,
And then
exactly.
you watch something like Hugo.
And that's another one. Hugo I really enjoyed as well, which is way outside of what you would expect from him.
And Shutter Island even in the same way, like you were saying.
100%. So although I really do like a lot of his movies, I think that this one you could really put up there. It's really well done.
I'm not going to say it reinvented the wheel because it didn't necessarily do that. But of the ones I've seen, I agree. So I've seen 13. Exactly half. I've seen Taxi Driver, Raging Bull. Some of them I need to rewatch. After Hours, Goodfellas, Cape Fear.
Oh, I would see that too.
Bringing Out the Dead, Gangs of New York, The Departed, Shutter Island, Hugo, Wolf of Wall Street, Irishman, and Killers of the Flower Moon. And I would definitely put this in the upper half, upper third.
Yeah.
But some of the ones, like you were saying, that don't feel necessarily like Scorsese movies, like A Bringing Out the Dead, which is Nicolas Cage, and he's an ambulance driver in New York City. And it's just about some crazy nights that he has as an ambulance driver in pre-9/11 New York City.
Yeah.
Which is a whole different ball game. And After Hours, which is another, like, on the streets New York City movie, which it's Griffin Dunn, and he's just a worker at some, like, nondescript corporation. He leaves his job at 5 o'clock or whatever, and he tries to go home, and he just keeps getting sidetracked. And it's like a rat in a maze type movie. It's very like, it's weird. It's not experimental in like what you like in that type of way.
Right.
But it's like, it's a strange, weird little movie, and it's not something that you would associate with Scorsese at all.
Interesting.
I love it. It's one of my favorite Scorseses. But also, I agree. Like, I want to watch Mean Streets. I want to watch Casino, which is just one that slipped by me.
Always.
Because it's super long, I think.
What's your favorite Scorsese? Because I don't know what mine is.
My favorite Scorsese. I mean, I'm not going to say it's After Hours, but like looking at the list of his movies, it might be After Hours. Goodfellas, of course, is just a classic.
Of course.
And again, I kind of got to rewatch Taxi Driver and Raging Bull because I watched those like before I was ready. I think.
Yeah. I stopped watching Taxi Driver a couple minutes in because it's a classic era, and I'm too young for this.
For me, it wasn't the content. I finished it, I watched it, but I feel like I would get it more now.
Yeah, for sure.
Because back then I was like, oh, this is like an anti-hero guy. Like, but you're not supposed to like Travis Bickle,
right?
And I didn't quite get that and I didn't like him,
right.
But I didn't get that was the point when I was younger. And same with Raging Bull, but I would probably go with After Hours of Goodfellas, or honestly, I had a lot of fun.
Wolf of Wall Street is great.
Yes, but I had a lot of fun when we rewatched The Departed a couple years ago.
That was fun too. We watched that at a hotel room in Newport.
Yeah.
Okay, but can I just say, like, Wolf of Wall Street's actually really good.
I know.
In a way that I get mad about it, and I didn't want to like it at first when we watched it because it was very, very popular with the wrong crowd.
Well, when
it came out,
if you think about Taxi Driver, his movies tend to do that.
Yeah, and so everybody that we went to like if you think about like every frat bro in college,
except for me, apparently,
that's really annoying and like whatever. Like they're Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, man, greed is good, even though that's Wall Street.
That's Wall Street.
Like, ew, but it's such a good movie.
It's very fun.
It's so fun.
But it's another one of those things where it's like, he's a bad guy.
Yes.
And Scorsese tells you the entire movie that he's a bad guy.
And people don't get that.
No.
Like, even recently, right, we were fighting with Nick Wance about it, where he's like, well, he's in the movie, right? Is that what?
Jordan Belfort is in the movie.
Right. No, but were we fighting about Wance about that? Or
probably.
Probably. If we didn't and Wance was listening, then sorry. But I think it's true. And, like, yes, he's in the movie, but he's not in on the joke that Martin Scorsese's in on.
Yeah.
Like, or he is and he doesn't care because he's in a Martin Scorsese movie.
Right. I think it's likely that.
Right? So, Wolf of Wall Street's really good, too. All right. What about Leo and De Niro? So, let me tell you, I have seen 15 Leonardo DiCaprio movies.
Now, these I got to calculate.
So, I have seen What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Romeo and Juliet, Titanic, Gangs of New York, The Departed, Revolutionary Road, Shutter Island, Inception, Django Unchained, Great Gatsby, Wolf of Wall Street, Revenant, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Don't Look Up, and Killers of the Flower Moon. To me, I think that DiCaprio has gotten into a kind of almost in like that George Clooney territory where like a lot of his movies, it's just like it's DiCaprio in a role.
Which I would say even before Clooney was Jack Nicholson.
Right. Where it's like, oh, that's just DiCaprio doing whatever, you know? And like, even when you're watching, you're like, yeah, but it's DiCaprio.
That's DiCaprio sleeping in a bear.
Right. That's DiCaprio when the world's about to explode. Right. Don't Look Up. Like, whatever. I found that this was among one of the few movies that I feel like he truly disappeared into that role.
I thought he was amazing in this movie.
He was wonderful. And he played a part that I had never seen him in before.
Never.
And when I look back at these movies, he does take on a varied, like he has varied roles. He doesn't play the same guy in every role now that I look at it. Like his part in What's Eating Gilbert Grape is very different than in Revolutionary Road, which is very different than Django Unchained, which is very different from Killers of the Flower Moon, right?
But in a lot of them, it just feels like it's him. Like it feels like it's him playing that character. The ones that I've seen,
I feel
like Django Unchained feels like him playing a crazy,
really good in
like
that,
slave
though.
owner.
Yeah,
like Inception feels like it's just him.
I feel
Shutter
like,
Island feels like it's him with memory loss.
I feel like I would make the argument that either this movie or Wolf of Wall Street are my favorite performances of his.
I mean, I can't argue with either of those. I really can't.
Yeah.
I've seen most of the ones that you've seen. I haven't seen What's Eating Gilbert Grape. I haven't seen.
I mean, that is a whole different ballgame.
I haven't seen Titanic. I've seen all of Titanic, but never sat down and watched the whole thing.
It's a good movie.
I've also. Did you say Catch Me If You Can?
I've never seen it.
I saw it a while ago. I'd have to rewatch it. One of those types. Same with The Man in the Iron Mask. I watched in high school. But I've seen most of those. Haven't seen Revolutionary Road.
Yeah, that's a very sad movie.
Did you see Blood Diamond?
I've never seen Blood
haven't
Diamond.
seen it
I was
either.
supposed to watch that for my freshman year. What's it called? Class?
Oh,
ESP?
FSP.
FSP. But I did not.
Did you see The Great Gatsby?
Yeah, I did.
I didn't see it.
It's Baz. Baz.
Oh, I remember. I remember back in 2019 thinking that he should have won Best Actor for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That was a good movie.
Over, I guess it was either the Rami Malek year or the Joaquin Phoenix year.
Yeah.
I think it was Joaquin Phoenix. But so I really liked him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. But again, it was him playing. It felt like it was him playing an actor.
Yeah.
You know. But in this one, and I agree, and like this one, he's great in this.
Yeah.
He's just the way that
I feel kind of sad that he wasn't nominated.
He like transforms his face.
Yeah.
The whole time. He's just not he's more like reserved than you normally get out of him.
He's not like he doesn't have that little like wink nudge about him that I feel like he does a lot of the time.
Yeah. It's a very
He's not trying to be charismatic.
I was going to say it's an unglamorous role.
Yeah.
Despite it being the protagonist in a Scorsese movie.
And he's still great.
I think he's perfect for this role and for this movie, and I don't know. I just, again, as you can tell from this conversation, like I'm not the hugest DiCaprio fan on earth.
Yeah.
For these reasons, but yeah, I mean, I think this is one of his career bests, and I don't know how popular of an opinion that is, but it's just take it or leave it.
I agree. I loved it. We have very similar opinions in movies, so that makes sense. I mean, even though we don't have, it's weird. Like I feel like we have similar opinions on like a lot of things to do with movies, but if we were to list our top favorite movies, a lot of the overlap would be like it would be different.
Yeah.
It's interesting. All right, let's talk about De Niro a little bit. I was convinced. I have barely seen any De Niro. Turns out I've seen 13 of his movies, but like none of the good ones. So some of the good ones. So I've seen Raging Bull, Goodfellas, A Bronx Tale. I've seen Meet the Parents, Shark Tale, Machete, Silver Linings Playbook, American Hustle, The Intern, Joy, Joker, Irishman, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Okay, that's a mixed bag, I would say.
Very mixed bag. Although I enjoy him in almost everything I've seen him in.
Okay, so I've seen Godfather Part 2. I've seen Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, The Untouchables, Midnight Run, Goodfellas, Cape Fear, A Bronx Tale. I've been told to watch Copland so many times, and Jackie Brown. Great Expectations I've seen. Meet the Parents.
That's 10. Start over.
Meet the Fockers.
I did not count that even.
Machete. Little Fockers. Silver Linings Playbook. American Hustle. He was uncredited in American Hustle.
I'll count it. I don't care.
Joker, Irishman, and Killers of the Flower Moon.
It's 18.
Yeah. So, which is not that many of his expansive filmography.
How would this compare to other performances you've seen him in?
I think it was one of his stronger performances.
He was wonderful in this.
He was great. He plays the role he straddles a line between intelligent and brash and friendly, and he operates in this little niche of villainy that it's very hard to make believable.
Right.
Despite the fact that there are many people like the character that he's portraying in real life, many big famous people. And it's kind of obvious who he's drawing some inspiration from.
That's a
conversation for a different day.
Outside of the podcast, message us if you want to talk about who we think Scorsese really wanted to,
or De Niro.
Or De Niro really wanted to us as an audience in 2024 to relate back to when it comes to this performance.
Yes.
Which we will not be discussing on
due
air.
to our government employment. But I think that I don't want to say that his later career has been
a mixed bag.
I mean, it has been a mixed bag from what I can tell. Grudge Match. But I think I would have to go back and watch some of his earlier stuff. Watch Mean Streets. Watch Casino. Right. Watch Jackie Brown. Watch Heat to really get the full De Niro experience that I don't necessarily have to a full degree. But
right.
I mean, of the ones that I've seen, it's the best I've seen in maybe since Goodfellas.
What I really enjoyed about this performance of his is
sorry, I just want to shout out Silver Linings Playbook because he's my favorite part of that movie.
It's the best part of the movie by far to me. I love his performance. He's so Philly.
Oh, he was also in Limitless, which I've seen, so 19.
Okay. And he's so Philadelphia in Silver Linings Playbook.
He's so neurotic in that movie.
He's so fun. It's very much dad that you see where the problems dripped down to the son, but the dad would refuse to get any help for those problems.
Correct.
And so now the son is dealing with it to a crazy level that if the dad had gotten help when he needed it, then maybe this wouldn't have been going on, but now it's going on.
Right.
It's good stuff. I like that movie. I'm sorry, but I like that movie.
I think I like that movie for different reasons than it is criticized for. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
I feel like the De Niro part is not the part that people talk about.
No, and it should be.
Yeah.
And what's her name? The wife too.
Oh,
she's so good.
Jackie Weaver.
Yeah, so good. They're the best parts of it. Okay. Although Bradley Cooper's good in that too.
Oh no, yeah.
And Jennifer Lawrence won for that, but that's not my favorite role of hers.
Yeah, I agree.
So anyway, what I really like about the William Hale role in Killers of the Flower Moon for Robert De Niro is there's this familial warmth about him.
He's an absolute snake.
But
he's good at it.
He's good at it, and he's one of those guys that when he is talking to you and he's giving you the attention and he's got the kindness in his voice and you feel like you're one of his family members and that you trust him, which is obviously how he got so many people to do his evil bidding.
Yeah.
Because you're his buddy. Of course, he would do anything for you, or he says he would.
That and his money.
Yeah.
Well, and not that he says he would. He will.
And he will.
He talked about when he was in jail, he was like, "Oh, the Osage will take me back. Did they like their hospital and their gas stations and their
He's gotten people out of jail before. He's gotten people houses before. He's made sure that people get jobs that they he does all these things.
Now his intentions are obviously evil.
Oh, evil.
And impure. But if you were a person that he helped out, I could see you being like, all right, well, I can help him out too because
exactly. And because it's just he's got that special something to him, that je ne sais quoi.
And a lesser actor than De Niro wouldn't be able to get that across.
100%. So I loved his performance. I am surprised it's not getting more attention than it is.
If we're talking him against Downey,
yeah,
for Best Supporting Actor, I'm taking De Niro.
Me too. I would still probably put Gosling over him.
I would put him. I think that they're in the convo together.
Yeah.
Gosling was my number one before this movie, and now it's kind of like I would be rooting for those two.
Melton was your number one.
Right. But I mean, also,
and we haven't seen a couple of the performances, right? Sterling K. Brown, and then who was the other one?
I don't remember.
I don't know.
There's so many
names. And obviously, we love Dominic Sessa too.
Yeah, shout out my guy.
So
Ruffalo, poor things. We haven't
seen that either. And people are saying how much they love him in it.
Yeah.
So who knows where it'll end up? But of the three,
Downey's
gonna win.
Been dominating.
He's gonna win, and he so far is I still think he was good, but he was my least favorite of the three so far. And De Niro really rose up the ranks for me.
I thought that Downey's part in Oppenheimer wasn't as meaningful as the parts in Barbie and in Killers.
Yeah, my thing is with Killers, like I feel like he is just he's not just the catalyst for everything happening and all this stuff, but you understand how he got there.
Yeah.
From his performance, and I really like that.
And you understand why DiCaprio does the things that he does.
100%.
Because not only like this is his actual family, like he believes that DiCaprio, Ernest believes that Hale King has his best interests in mind because he's his uncle. Why wouldn't he?
And yeah, and it's interesting how people in this town, they all know that this dude has done bad things.
Well, it's like a Bronx Tale.
And it's interesting. And we see it in, we talked about it today with somebody else in the public eye in a company, in a company that he did a lot of awful things, it seems. And no one ever said anything. And so it's interesting how you could see how personalities and powerful people are able to, wreak havoc.
Yeah, and that's why there needed to be oversight, which is why the Bureau of Investigation had to get involved.
Yep.
Which was the only thing that was able to sort of pull him away.
Right.
Which Scorsese doesn't leave the FBI either to its competence because he makes clear at the end that these guys got let out and they were sentenced to life, but they got paroled and they lived out their lives.
Right.
So it wasn't exactly a huge win for the justice system either, especially after it was in the wake of dozens and dozens, and many Osage would argue hundreds of Osage were killed during this time period.
On Wikipedia, it said 60 plus with parentheses, possibly hundreds.
Because the Osage say that the story and like the book and all the investigations only showed X amount when there were other like hundreds that were unaccounted for.
Sure.
That were not investigated.
I believe it.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the nomination, any other nominations that you find interesting. For me, the other big one, I mean, I think that Scorsese, of course, deserves to be nominated. It definitely deserves Best Picture nomination.
Sure.
Screenplay, I don't know. Like, is it a snub? I don't know. I have to see the rest of them.
I think that adapted screenplay is a pretty strong category.
Yeah. So.
And it probably hurt it that Barbie got pushed to adapted.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's Oppenheimer, The Zone of Interest. What did I say? Oppenheimer, The Zone of Interest, Barbie, American Fiction, and Poor Things. So we've only seen
a couple of them.
And I'm excited for the other three. I think that
me too.
They're all good.
To me, the big thing is the big one's Lily Gladstone in lead actress.
Yeah.
You know, I gotta say, I was very much, she's just a supporting role during most of the movie. And then she is in a lot of it. She is.
I said that I was like, there's no way that she is lead. But I said that when she was dying. Like halfway through the movie, and I was like, she's gonna die, and then she's not gonna be in the rest of the movie.
And
I was wrong.
She is in the rest of the movie.
She is. And she's in the pivotal scene at the end when she leaves.
She is. So even though I think it still straddles supporting and lead, I'm okay with her being a lead actress.
I'm totally okay with it.
I'm fine with it anyway. But I just mean that, like, in the classification of it as a lead performance, I'm okay with that.
I'm totally okay with it for the reasons that I mentioned on our Oscars podcast, one of which being that Scorsese wanted to position her as the heart of the story. And
I think by the end she truly is. I do think that if it was a lesser actress it wouldn't even be like conversation for me on like, oh, is this a well-written part that's blah, blah, blah. I think that her performance truly makes the film as good as it is.
But I would say the same thing about DiCaprio and De Niro.
Absolutely. Which is why I think they should have been nominated.
Which is maybe why the screenplay didn't get nominated.
There you go. Well, and that's so important. I think that I wish that there was a lot more background on the family, on her and her family.
Well,
I don't want the movie to be longer.
my one note that I wrote was some of the more compelling parts were when we got to see things like the elders trying to keep the community together.
Yes.
And that type of stuff, which we didn't get a whole lot of because it was mostly about the crime aspect of it.
I do think that the performances were so strong that I felt like I got it. Like, I get the matriarchal power of that family, and that at the beginning at all the gatherings they were filled with laughter and happiness and togetherness, and they were so close, and you can see that closeness and that familial bond between them. And I really like the juxtaposition between that at the beginning of the movie, when like at their wedding, Molly and Ernest's wedding, everyone's there and everyone's happy, and it's this big, colorful, wonderful experience. And then at Molly and Ernest's daughter Anna's funeral, barely anybody's there.
Yeah.
Barely anybody's there.
For either being dead
or gone
out of their lives.
Exactly. And of course they're all wearing black, and it is a very just like jarring difference.
Yeah.
And I think that is a like stuff like that makes it be like, okay, we don't need all of that background because of the strength of the performances of the actresses there. I think that Lily Gladstone is so good. She's got this kind of twinkle in her eye where you know that there's so much to Molly, and that she's so beloved, and she's got this kind of like humor to her, a deep understanding of the way the world is, and what she wants the world to be. And I think that she comes into it like that, understanding, and even saying at one point that like she knows she's not marrying Ernest for his smarts.
Yeah.
Right? But just this like deep wanting of being loved and appreciated, and in a different way than maybe she is with her family, and still having her family there is like what she really needs, even though she also can build with Ernest. And then once that family aspect starts kind of decreasing, you see her kind of, the light is going from her eyes, literally and figuratively, throughout the movie. And I think Gladstone was just the perfect person to play that part.
Yeah, and she's like that. And I've recently watched a movie she was in called Certain Women, which I think I mentioned on the other podcast. And she plays a very, very different character. She's she works in like a barn, and she sees a bunch of people going into like a municipal building, and she goes in, and it's Kristen Stewart is teaching basically law to the teachers in the town, and Lily Gladstone like sort of strikes up a friendship with Kristen Stewart, and you could tell that she's like kind of like falling for her, but like she never says it.
Yeah.
And you can tell from just her expressions, the way that she twitches, the way that she looks in certain ways, like she's such a good actress that it's a very subtle role and she's great in those roles. And I did read that Scorsese cast her in this movie because he saw her in that, and I can totally see, they're totally different characters, but I can see what he saw in her Certain Women character and wanted to transplant into Molly.
Yeah.
And I think it was spot on.
And she was great. She could definitely win.
She could. I think that it's either her or Emma Stone.
I think so too.
Emma Stone probably has like a 60% chance.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah.
But I could see them giving it to Gladstone too.
I want to real quick before I go to my last question here. How would it compare to the other nominated movies we've seen this year?
I think this is a really good year.
I think so too. I like pretty much all of the nominees I've seen.
Maestro, we've seen 6
Oh,
of
yeah.
them.
And Maestro was there too.
We've seen 6 of them now, and Maestro is the only one that I
actively am not super into.
Didn't like.
Yeah.
But of this, The Holdovers, Barbie, Oppenheimer, and Past Lives.
It's great.
I can't even really rank them on the spot right now. I think that they're
all
really good.
We'll be able to do it for our Oscars episode, I'm sure. We will. And I'm excited for all of the rest of the nominees too.
Yeah.
I'm even excited to watch Nyad and stuff. I'm in. All right, good. This movie, because it's a Scorsese movie, because it's got the whole it's an adaptation of a popular book. It's a big movie, right? There was a lot of controversy. So let's talk about 3 things that are controversial over the year that I have seen people be mad about. One of the things that isn't really a controversy, they kept only talking about, it was only one still picture. So anytime they mentioned Killers of the Flower Moon, it would just be that one picture of them at the dinner table.
At the table, yeah.
But anyway, so let's talk about the intermission. There were a few theaters, not just in the United States, but in a couple other countries as well, that put an intermission in the middle of this movie, which is about 3 hours and 30 minutes long, a little bit less than that. People got involved, and that stopped because of a contract violation.
I mean, come on, it's under 3.5 hours. What else do you want?
What are your thoughts on the intermission during a movie?
I think it should be up to the creator. It should be up to the people involved in the movie. And do I think that this could have used an intermission? Maybe. I mean, we watched it in 3 sittings and it was fine. But I think it should be up to the original intent of the artist. And in this case, clearly, nobody involved in this movie was in favor of an intermission. I don't think from watching this movie that there was a natural spot in about halfway. The spot that I would have chosen, the spot that I thought would have been maybe you could stop at, was when Ernest gets picked up by the FBI.
Yeah.
But that's
way
that's
into the
2.5 hours in.
So no.
So that would have been my spot, but I don't think it's hard to cut the momentum of the second act of this movie.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get it. It's long. Totally get it. There's a lot of long movies.
Yeah.
Did you sit through Avengers Endgame?
Right.
You're not getting from this what you're getting from Avengers Endgame. You're getting 2 totally different experiences. But if you're going to see Killers of the Flower Moon, to me, Martin Scorsese is one of those people that, at least for me, giving him the benefit of the doubt. If it's what he wants, if this is the way he wants to show his art, I'm going to respect that as long as I can,
Right.
If I have to get up and go to the bathroom, I have to get up and go to the bathroom. But I don't know. I'm do what you want, but I lean for this movie because the creators of this movie wanted it. I lean anti-intermission.
I agree with you on that, actually. I think that...
Even though we took 2 intermissions.
Yeah, but if we had seen it in theaters...
Right.
We saw Oppenheimer, which is 3 hours, and I
could have done another 20 minutes in Oppenheimer.
I didn't get up during that movie.
Yeah.
I was also not pregnant.
Right.
But still. And... we are human beings with free will, so we can indeed get up and leave for 5 minutes and come back if we need to, or do whatever Robbie did when he was watching Supper.
Oh yeah.
Although I don't know if you listened to that episode.
I think you told me.
Podcast.
You told me.
So, I mean, no intermission needed. I agree. Okay.
But if Scorsese had made it where there was an intermission.
Oh, that's fine too.
That's
it's
fine
whatever
too.
they want. Whoever makes the movie. All right, number 2. Brendan Fraser got a lot of flack for his performance where he is Robert De Niro's character's lawyer. And so he comes out very bombastic from the start. The second he's on screen, he's yelling.
Yes.
I object.
And he's coming up with these BS exceptions and stuff that he's basically saying that because he's DiCaprio's lawyer, also DiCaprio can't testify against,
even though DiCaprio did not know that he was his lawyer.
Right.
What did you feel about that performance?
He's the obnoxiousness of him and the way that he sticks out from the rest of the movie is 1000% purposeful. It's the point of his character.
Exactly. I just like truly don't understand why it's a controversy.
Imagine, okay, remember how I said that Robert De Niro's character is evokes the sort of I don't know, evokes the essence of a real life person who is larger than life,
right?
Who has a lot of power,
right?
And who has used that power in certain ways,
right?
What would that person's lawyer look like?
Right.
It would look like Brendan Fraser's character.
Right.
We've seen that lawyer look like Brendan Fraser's character.
No comment.
And like, he is supposed to stick out like a sore thumb because none of the other people in the movie that are rational people sound like that. This is a guy who's selling himself out for Hale's money and for the fame and notoriety that would come from representing someone like Hale.
Right.
So that's the point. It might have taken some people out of it, and fine. But I think that fits perfectly into what Scorsese was trying to do with that scene.
I agree with you. And to me, it really even deepens De Niro's characterization.
Because it's showing, like, look
he could hire any lawyer out there, and he chose the guy that's going to be from the second he's there, a pit bull in the courtroom, right? That is very personal. And you know what? That is not unrealistic to what some lawyer strategies are.
Absolutely.
So
because you want to draw attention as much as you can. And you want to scrape away some lawyer strategies are to just throw everything at the wall.
Right.
And that's what he's trying to do in the most bombastic way possible.
And it's also, I think, a strategy to kind of elevate the absurdity in a way to be like, isn't this crazy that this guy's on trial? It's absolutely ridiculous that Hale is on trial for this, and we should all be mad about it. That's what his strategy is.
You try to make make it look like a miscarriage of justice.
Exactly. I don't see how it was out of I didn't see how it was out of tone with what the movie is.
Just because nobody else was super loud in the movie. That's what it is, I think.
I don't see the problem. Sorry. I'm team Brendan Fraser on it.
I thought it was fine. I thought it served its purpose.
Me too. The final thing that I saw was a few people that I saw online did not like the ending of this movie.
The radio scene.
The radio scene. So at some point you have, after Ernest, Leonardo DiCaprio's character, he testifies, right? And then it cuts to an of the time radio show that is very reminiscent of what a true crime podcast would be.
Yeah.
Of the case. And they, instead of doing the whole black screen with the font to tell you all the things that happened to everybody, they instead play, like, it's like a live show of a radio show where they're saying what ended up happening to every character.
Doing the sound effects and the
whole thing. And then at the very end, Martin Scorsese himself comes out and reads what happens to Molly, Lily Gladstone's character. And I know some people really did not like that as the ending. I don't know if they thought it was a cop-out of an ending or just very much out of place. I personally found it to be one of my favorite endings of the past few years.
I thought it was great.
I loved it because, number one, it's a creative way to tell the audience what happened to these characters because they are real life people.
Yes.
And so I appreciate something that's different from the black screen with the words on it. Number two, I think it highlighted another point of the
two other points that I saw. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'll get to it. Another point of how our society now really is sort of exploiting people's tragedies for entertainment with the rise of ID channel and true crime podcasts and all that, which I listen to true crime podcasts and I feel guilty about it sometimes because I totally understand that.
Interesting that this is kind of a theme this year with May, December as well.
Yeah. And how it even back then it seems like that was something that was done for entertainment.
Yeah.
Right? And then
think about my dad. My dad watches all this serial killer stuff on
Yep.
Netflix and all that. Like, and it's not just him, it's many people do.
For sure. And then number three, Scorsese himself being a part of this radio show, kind of emphasizing this idea that maybe he's not the one that should be telling this story.
That not only that, but
and he understands it.
Acknowledging his role in the fact of true crime as entertainment.
Yeah.
Because even if you think about Goodfellas, it's based on Henry Hill's memoir or whatever it is.
Yep.
Like if you think about a lot of his bigger stuff, it's based on The Irishman is based on true crime.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street's based on true crime.
Yep.
So I think it's him basically saying like, I know that I am part of this, and like you said, maybe not the right person to tell Molly's story. But I don't really know what to take away from that other than the fact that I think he's acknowledging that.
Right. And it really reminded me of the end of BlacKkKlansman.
Right.
Which is just kind of an acknowledgement of how even though times have changed and time has moved on, we're not that far from what happened in the past.
Yeah.
Really,
I definitely see that from this movie.
Really well done.
Especially given the possible parallels between certain characters to things that are going on now as well.
Exactly. And that's all I got.
Okay, you pretty much hit all my questions.
Good.
Lily Gladstone, as I noted, was cast based on her work on Kelly Reichardt's Certain Women in 2016. She was essentially cast over a Zoom call. So she was in the process of actually registering for a data analytics course and quitting acting when she got a request for a Zoom meeting with Martin Scorsese. This was during COVID, and she was considering a career change because of all the crazy stuff. According to DiCaprio, he said, "There was no reading. Marty just instinctively knew Lily was the one. There's a truthfulness in her eyes that he saw even over a computer screen. I've never known Scorsese to meet somebody and then immediately afterwards have this gravitational pull and instinct to say, let's not wait another minute."
Wow. She is the heart of the movie for sure.
Martin Scorsese approached DiCaprio with the script when it was still told from Tom White's point of view, who was Jesse Plemons' character, the FBI agent investigating the murder cases. DiCaprio felt that this would make it another movie about indigenous people seen from a white outsider perspective, so it was then rewritten to bring Ernest and Molly more into focus and tell the story from within the Osage community. DiCaprio also accepted the role as of Ernest, while Jesse Plemons was cast as White, who doesn't actually appear in the film until the third hour.
Yeah. And he's great in it.
He is. Well, my third one is he turned down the role of Jupe in Nope, which was played by Stephen Yeun for this movie.
Another great role.
Yeah. Very memorable.
That one scene will haunt me forever.
The chimpanzee scene?
No.
That was wild.
No, the one at the big rodeo.
Oh, yeah.
That
was a good movie.
The claustrophobia.
Yeah.
Oh my god. The chimpanzee scene was wild too.
Yeah.
That was a good movie.
It was.
I still don't Get Out is still by far my favorite.
I like Nope not more than Get Out, but I like it the more that I think about it. Like when I watched it, I was like, that was pretty good. But I think about it a lot.
All three of his movies are really well done.
Us, I think I need to give a rewatch.
Get Out is just an absolute classic for me. It's an all-timer.
It's one of those like Hitchcockian things where it's not super deep and it's not super complex, but it just hits all those notes.
It hits the screenplay's so tight. All right, I'm sorry.
Number 4. Well, here you go. This is where I got that from. Scorsese claimed that he decided to appear on screen during the radio scene because he wasn't sure if he could direct an actor to express the shift in tone to sincerity mid-scene, and he wanted to be upfront about his own responsibility in the murders being used for entertainment.
There you go.
And number 5, he cited the films of Ari Aster as influences on the pacing. Midsommar and Beau is Afraid.
I believe that.
Those are both long movies. I haven't yet seen Beau is Afraid, but Midsommar's like 2.5 hours long, but I didn't feel like it was 2.5 hours long.
I was busy having a heart attack halfway through. Yeah, I had panic attacks for months after that, so
but
I guess it was successful.
I would say one of the strengths of this movie is it going 3.5 hours and me never being like, oh my God, when is this movie going to end?
Yeah, for sure.
And I felt that way about Midsommar too, in a different way. But
well, I also think that both of those movies really do have this kind of dread throughout them, which is tough to watch at times, although I found Killers of the Flower Moon to be much more watchable than Midsommar was.
Midsommar's supposed to be torture.
It was truly literally. I'm not joking. I had panic attacks for months after it. It was really the most affecting movie I think I've ever seen.
Now I'm gonna do my deep dive really quick, and I'm gonna give a couple of extra homework assignments if you're interested. So I'm gonna give you one article. It's from Slate. It's written by Joel Robinson, who is a member of the Osage community.
Nation.
and it's titled "Killers of the Flower Moon is not the story an Osage would have told. You still should see it." And basically, I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's a really nice, well-written, long article, and I don't want to like cut the words and do all that. But it's essentially about how he says something like, "So when I heard years ago that the story I had heard growing up was being adapted into a feature film and that none other than Martin Scorsese was directed it, I was knocked off my feet. I also had conflicting thoughts. On one hand, this was an opportunity for us to have our history told like never before. On the other, it was being done by an outsider who hadn't grown up with it like we had." So apparently this was called the Reign of Terror before the FBI, whatever. So he mentioned, like you said, about the finale, about the ending. He said, "As I was watching the film, I kept wondering how Scorsese would end it. After all, there's no white savior here. We were not saved by what is now known as the FBI. Our people got through this by relying on one another. Many cases weren't investigated, much less solved. It's hard to put an end to a chapter that's still present. To me, the finale might just be perfect. It elicited every single emotion I've ever felt when learning about the Reign of Terror. It made me so angry, so sad, and so disillusioned with our country's justice system. It also serves as a painful reminder of how stories centered on non-white groups are often told. The affected population is all too frequently granted a mere footnote in their own story in favor of making sure the good guys are glorified for saving the day, regardless of historical accuracy." So he talks a lot about that. He mentions that the runtime maintains a good pace that I never found tedious. He also says, this is what I'm going to end with here. He says, "It's important to me that you, the non-Osage reader of this article, know that this is merely a chapter in Osage history. While the effects of the Reign of Terror still live with us today, we do not live as victims. We are a proud, resilient people, and our tribe is a thriving nation. I know that for many of you, this will be your first exposure to our people. I do hope it's not the last. It's also important that you know that we are not the only tribe with a story like this. While this one is specific to my tribe, all tribes have their own dark histories that deserve to be told. I'm hopeful that this film will prove again to the powers that be that there is an audience for Indigenous-focused stories, and I hope that this can be a catalyst for other tribes to have their stories told. For any non-Indigenous person seeing this film and encountering this history for the first time, I encourage you to be angry. I think it's a very healthy emotion to feel when learning about an event like this. This is a depiction of greed, racism, and an attempted extermination of a people after all, but rather than sitting and wrestling with that anger internally, I hope that you can turn it into a drive to get engaged. Indigenous communities still have many issues that affect us today. I hope you use your anger to help us fight for visibility and for change." Mm-hmm. It's an excellent article. I didn't read all of it. There's plenty more. So I'm going to put that in the show notes as well as the other two articles that I saw. One of them is by another Osage member named Christine Vestal, and it's on Politico. And it's called "The Real Story Behind Killers of the Flower Moon is Much Worse." And much of it is about her finding her great-grandfather, who was one of the uninvestigated murders during the Reign of Terror.
Wow.
And it's a whole big story about that and the politics behind it and the FBI and all that. So I'm going to put that one in there. And then there's another one that's just sort of general reviews of the movie from Indian Country Today, ictnews.org. Osages offer mixed reviews of Killers of the Flower Moon, and it's essentially kind of what we've been alluding to, that the movie's good, everything, it's good, but they want more and more Indigenous-centered movies and TV shows and all that. So those three I'm going to put in the show notes. They're all really, really great articles. I highly encourage reading them if you're interested in this and interested in this movie and this history and this story. I also would recommend an Indigenous History of the United States, which is by Roxanne Dunbar Ortiz. It's a sort of little history book about some of this stuff. And, of course, there's the famous Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, which is one of the big famous books. And then the other one that I recently read was called Heartbeat of Wounded Knee, which is by David Troyer, I think is how you pronounce his name. And it's a rebuttal to Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, basically saying that, like, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee focused on death and destruction, whereas Heartbeat sort of shows how Natives have been resilient and persistent since Wounded Knee, the Wounded Knee Massacre. And so all this reading, it's a lot of reading, but if you're interested in any of this stuff, I highly recommend those three articles, those couple of books, and then look up what like Indigenous people recommend for reading and all that, which is how I got those recommendations. So I think it's important to hear those voices, of course, and not just, white people. So
not just my boy Marty.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's it for my deep dive. I think that's all I've got. Oh, the one other thing that I wanted to notice that we didn't talk about was they focus on the Tulsa Race Massacre in this movie, which is
they mention it a few separate times.
Yeah.
The Tulsa Race Massacre. It's kind of interesting that before Watchmen a couple years ago, was it their first episode?
It was the first episode. It was the opening of the first episode.
That opened with it. I mean, it seems that it was very much not in the public consciousness.
Yeah, it was like not controversial, but people were like, "What is this?"
Right, and since then there's been a massive uptick in research on TV shows and movies that have referenced it or been about the Tulsa Race Massacre, which was another thing.
Like the parallel here is that, like the Osage oil, Tulsa had something called Black Wall Street.
I was going to say it was Black Wall Street, right?
These were self-created minority communities in the United States that were thriving.
Mm-hmm.
That exploitation, murder, and greed
and racism, of course,
by powerful white people, wiped out and genocided these areas.
Mm-hmm.
And you can really see that. You can really see the parallel. It took me first, like, De Niro's watching the newsreel with the Osage, and they're all freaking out about it. And because I guess it was contemporaneous. I don't know exactly how the time period lined up.
Yeah, it seems about right, because I think the Watchmen episode, which was like 2021 maybe, was around the 100-year anniversary.
1921.
There you go.
Which was definitely around this time period in this movie. But I thought that was a really interesting and smart parallel to make, because it really does highlight that this is not the only time this happened. This is not a specific story. This is not a one-time only thing. This happens. This is what people in power do. This is what racist people in power do. And people like Hale and the people who perpetrated the Tulsa Race Massacre, like, they're of the same ilk. Mm-hmm. And it's not acceptable, and it's genocidal.
And this was a mere century ago.
Oh, yeah.
And we have many instances of things in the world and in our country that are less than that as well.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
So does Killers of the Flower Moon make Baby's first watch list?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He actually caught the last couple of minutes of it.
He did. He caught the scene.
Got up from his nap a little early.
When Ernest and Molly were talking to each other at the end, and he was like apologizing for most of what he did, and then it would cut to Leo, and he would go, "Hi."
Yeah, and then it cut to Lily, and hi. I'm like, hey, come on,
now.
We're a little busy here.
Let them figure their stuff out. We'll do hi later.
Hi.
All right, yeah, so it definitely makes it. And so now we're going to turn to February, getting closer to our Oscar season. So what we're going to do here is next week we're going to do Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. We're going to go a little lighter than we did this week.
We're going to talk about how all of the employees were exploited making this movie.
No, we're not.
Nice and light.
We can, of course, reference that, but I don't know how much of a chunk of the episode it's going to be.
Okay.
Then the following week, we're going to do All That Jazz.
Yep.
Which is a Bob Fosse, Roy Scheider classic.
Liza Minnelli.
It'll be our second Scheider.
Is that Liza Minnelli?
I think so.
John Lithgow had an early career role in it. I saw during my search for an NJ connection. So there's your NJ connection for next week.
For 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now.
It'll be our second Scheider because we did Jaws.
Love.
It's also, Jessica Lange.
Oh, Queen.
I don't think it's.
I love Jessica Lange.
It's not Liza Minnelli. It's Jessica Lange.
It's not. Okay. She did Cabaret, I bet.
So then the third week, which will be, I guess, my birthday episode, we're going to do The Princess Bride.
Classic.
Which is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Love it.
And it's the best.
Have fun storming the castle.
Is that Carol Kane, right?
It's Billy Crystal. Yeah.
And then finally, we're going to be heading into Oscar season proper with American Fiction.
Kind of like a little bit of a dark horse here when it comes to like a Best Picture possibility.
It did pretty well.
Jeffrey Wright, I think, was like, it might do something.
Yeah,
basically
we'll see.
is what he's saying. Like, hey, you never know.
Yeah, so we're gonna watch to end the month. We're gonna watch American Fiction, which I don't know. Hopefully, more people will get to see by then.
I'm very excited to see that movie.
Me too. It looks entertaining and fun and
awesome.
biting and satirical. And I love Jeffrey Wright, and I'm glad he's getting his shine.
And I love Sterling K. Brown.
Yeah. I love Oscar nominee Sterling K. Brown and Oscar nominee Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah.
And Cord Jefferson, the director, apparently was amazing.
Love it.
Our friend, Uncle Nick Palesi, saw like a screening of it when it was at the Montclair Film Festival. And saw like a talk, I think, with Cord Jefferson, which was awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah, super excited to see it. So next week, we'll be back a little bit lighter with Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which will be our first sequel.
Maybe.
Because we did Into the Spider-Verse way back in the day, one of our first episodes. This might be our first sequel. Or
no,
maybe
it's not, because we did Harry Potter.
Oh, in the Chamber of Secrets. So it's our one of our first sequels.
One of our first sequels.
Yeah, so we will see you next week for Across the Spider-Verse, and thank you for listening to Killers, and keep following, keep sharing our clips and all that. So we will see you next week.
Bye.
See ya.